Hello viewers, hope you're doing well. Today in this video, I'm going to create Auth Service. After that, we will create JWT Authentication Filter class in Spring Boot application. So let's get started. As you can see, a services package. So inside this, let me create a new package with the name Auth. Inside the Auth, let me create a new interface with the name Auth Service. With this, I'm going to create a class with the name Auth Service Impl that we have the implementation of Auth Service. So we have to implement this with Auth Service. Now on the top of this class, let me add here the annotation that we have @service to make this class as a service in Spring Boot application. Second annotation that we have required ARGS constructor that we use to create constructor of dependency injection. So inside this, let me inject here user repository. After injecting it, let me open here Auth Service. So inside this interface, let me create the object of as user with email. So inside the argument, it will get an email that is a type of a string. The return type that we have Boolean. Now let me open here Auth Service implementation, and I'm going to implement the function that we have as user with email. Now inside this function, we have to return here the response of this query that we have find first by email. Inside the argument of this, we have to pass here email, and the condition that we have is present. If a user found by email, then we have to return true. Otherwise, we have to return here false. Now after the auth service, I'm going to create a new package inside this. So the package name that we have configs. Inside this, let me create a class with the name JWT Authentication Filter. Let me extend this class with once per request filter. Now on the top of this class, let me add here the annotation that we have @component and the @required ARGS constructor. Inside this class, I'm going to inject here JWT util and the user service. So it will be a private final JWT util. Second, we have private final user service. Now I'm going to implement the function that we have do filter internal. This is the main function that handles the filter logic. It will run for every incoming HTTP request. Inside this function, I'm going to read the authorization header from the HTTP request. So as you can see, we are getting here the header with the key authorization. Now after that, I'm going to declare a variables for JWT token and the extracted email. So as you can see, a variables for JWT and the user email. Now after that, I'm going to add a if condition where we have to check if the header is missing or does not start with barrier. The request continues without setting any security context. So as you can see, the if condition, let me import string utils from this library. After the if condition, we have to remove the barrier prefix to isolate the JWT token. So as you can see, we are calling it the function that we have substring. Inside this, we have to pass here the index that we have 7. After removing the prefix, we have to extract email from the JWT. So as you can see, a function that we have extract username from JWT util. Inside the argument, we are passing here the JWT. As you can see the function from JWT util that we have extract username. After extracting it, we have the if condition where we have to check a valid email is extracted and the user is not already authenticated in the current security context. Let me import security context holder that will be from org.springframework.security.core.context. Now inside this if, I'm going to load the user from DB using our custom user service. Let me import user details. So as you can see, a function from user service that we have load user by username that will use to retrieve the user by email from DB. After retrieving the user, we have the if condition where we have to validate the JWT against the user details like signature, expiration. So as you can see, a function we are calling here is token valid. Inside the argument, we are passing here a JWT and the user details. So as you can see, the implementation of is token valid function inside the JWT util class. Now inside this if block, I'm going to create an empty security context and prepare a Spring Security Authentication object using user info and the roles. Let me import this security context from org spring framework dot security dot core dot context. After that, I'm going to import here username password authentication token. After that, I'm going to add here request related metadata to the token. Let me import here web authentication details source. After that, I'm going to set here the authentication in the Spring Security context. Now, outside of this if block, we have to continue with the rest of filter chain. So it will be a filter chain dot do filter internal. Inside the argument, we have to pass here request and response. With this, I'm going to add the annotation that we have at the rate non-null. This class intercepts every HTTP request before it reaches the controller, checks for a valid JWT token in the authorization header, and sets the security context if the token is valid, allowing the request to be authenticated. Now you can take a look of a JWT Authentication Filter class. So that's all for now from my side. If you have any confusion, you can do comment. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.